Hello, everybody. Well, on the 27th of March 2023, the Government of Canada announced some amendments to an act that took effect at the beginning of the year, which is intended to stop foreign entities from purchasing property in Canada that could otherwise be used as housing for Canadian citizens. So we're a few months into this now, and the Housing Minister and Minister of Diversity and Inclusion at the same time has decided that we need to make some amendments to this act in order to better serve the interests of Canadians. So in our video today, I'm going to take you through those amendments and explain what they are. And then for those of you that aren't familiar with the foreign buyer ban in Canada, I'm going to take you through a run through of exactly what that is as well. All right, well, let's jump into it. So the amendments to the prohibition on the purchase of residential property by non-Canadian acts are as follows. There's been 4 of them. The first one is to enable more work permit holders to purchase a home to live in while working in Canada. So the idea is that if you're here on a work permit, you can buy property. You're not banned from buying property if you've come here to work and to contribute into our economy. So as long as you're not buying more than one residential property, you can go ahead and you can do that. In addition to that, they are repealing the existing provision so that the prohibition does not apply to vacant land. Okay, what they were finding was that by prohibiting foreign purchasers from buying vacant land, they were reducing the ability to develop that land. So when you're trying to add more supply and add more housing, you want as many groups as possible to be able to buy that land and develop it. And if it's vacant land, it's not taking away any existing housing from existing consumers. So they remove this so that you can, if you don't live in Canada, you can buy vacant land, and that will enable developers to come in and develop this land. The other 2 ones is another one is an exception for development purposes. So if you're buying a property to redevelop it, not to live in, so if you're developing it to add more housing, then that is now an exception. So you can buy property if it's for the purpose of development. Now, development is tearing it down and building a new development on it. It's not renovating your property or fixing it up or anything like that. That is still excluded. You can't use that as a loophole to buy it. And then the last amendment that they've made here is the definition of foreign control. Okay, so if you have a corporation, the previous rule was if that corporation had a 3% ownership of a foreign entity, then it was not allowed to purchase property in Canada. They've now raised that ceiling to 10%. So this means that some of the larger real estate investment trusts and larger development companies that have the funds to build large developments in Canada, they are now able to buy property because of the changes to to these rules. Okay, so those are the reasons why we've seen some of that. Now, there's a statement here from the Housing Minister Ahmed Hussein, who's not only the Minister of Housing. I didn't know this until I looked it up, but he's also the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion, which sounds really great, and is going to keep the Liberal government looking good. But housing is such an enormous factor in the Canadian economy and the Canadian identity that I think it deserves a minister just for housing. He's probably a little bit too busy if he's splitting his time between improving housing affordability for Canadians and also ensuring that we're diverse and inclusive at the same time. Perhaps we should carve that off and say you should just be looking after housing on it. But anyways, he's doing his job here by making some changes to the foreign buyer ban to allow development to continue. And why is this happening? Well, this has been brought about because the original intent of the home buyer ban, foreign buyer ban, was not working quite the same way that it was intended. And this is actually not surprising to me. I mean, they did this because the intentions were they don't want people that don't live in Canada buying real estate that could be lived in by Canadians, thereby contributing to the affordability problem that we have in Canadian real estate. But what it was also doing, the unintended consequences, is that it was reducing rental construction because it was too restrictive to developers. There are foreign developers or Canadian developers that have foreign ownership that were not able to develop real estate and add more supply. And so this change needed to be made. And there's news articles here that were a factor of that. Now, This doesn't mean that the overall buyer ban has changed dramatically. They've just massaged this a little bit to make it easier for development to occur. So what I'll do now is just quickly explain what hasn't changed and what you need to know if you are a foreign buyer and you're considering buying real estate in Canada, or more importantly, if you're a professional within the Canadian real estate industry, because you can't help a foreign buyer buy property. That's one of the rules as well, and this helps define what they're allowed to buy and what they're not allowed to buy. So it says here, it will apply to all individuals who are not Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or registered Indians as defined under the Industry Act, okay? And in addition to that, there's corporations, and some of the amendments are obviously intended to make it easier for these corporate entities to purchase real estate, to develop it into additional housing supply, and that's why this has changed. But it says here, it will apply to Canadian corporations and foreign controlled corporations, depending on the degree of control, and that's 10%. If it's 10% or more of a foreign control, then you can't do it here in Canada. Now, it doesn't apply to refugees that are protected, refugee claimants. But in addition to that, one of the things that I actually didn't know until I was researching for this video is that it also does not apply to non-Canadians who are purchasing property with their Canadian spouse or common law partner. So if you are a foreigner and you've married a Canadian, then you can help buy property. But not only that, if you're common law, so you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend that you're living in a conjugal relationship, then you can go ahead and buy real estate with them. So I think that's an interesting way. If you want to buy property here, you got to go and get a boyfriend or a girlfriend and help you do that as long as you're living with them. Okay, so moving on. In addition to that, it defines what constitutes a purchase. And this is another area where we're starting to see exceptions. And, I'm hearing questions within the industry. Can I help somebody buy this property or that? And so what is defined? It's a detached house or similar building containing not more than 3 dwelling units. Okay, so if you're buying a 4-plex and up and you don't live in Canada, go ahead. If you're buying 3 units or less, you can't do it, all right? And that includes part of a building that's semi-detached, a row house, townhouse, or a condominium unit as well, not just a single detached property. Now, the Act goes further to say that this only applies to census metropolitan areas, or a census agglomeration areas, okay? And I went a little bit further to find out what exactly these are, and it actually lists all of the communities in Canada where these are located. So you can see here for census metropolitan areas, the government has defined it. You can see a list here. You can go to the Government of Canada website if you want to check this out for yourself. And then the census agglomeration areas are kind of like communities that are just outside of these main census areas, and you can see here they're also listed in a fairly detailed list. There's a lot more of these obviously than there are the census metropolitan areas, but if you're buying outside of this list, then you can do that as a foreign buyer. Okay, so if you're living in a more rural or more remote community, that's obviously okay with the Government of Canada. Go ahead and buy real estate there. Now, what do you need to know if you're in the industry and you've got questions from a potential client that is curious about the foreign buyer ban? Well, you need to know that it's on you to ensure that you're not servicing or making it easier for somebody who is a foreign buyer to buy real estate, okay? So this is another thing that the government is doing, is putting pressure on industry members to police their legislation. And it says here that there are no exceptions made in the Act nor its regulation for lawyers, real estate agents, brokers, builders, etc. professionals, fairly broad here, and they should take great care. Professionals should take great care when advising parties in real estate transactions by ascertaining the status of a purchaser as well as the location and type of property in question, okay? And so this means that the onus is on professionals to ensure that they're not doing that. And the fine, I believe, is $10,000, up to $10,000 if you're helping somebody do that. So is the foreign buyer ban going to work? Is it going to create more affordable real estate for Canadians? Well, I think it will be impossible to tell because the Government of Canada is also raising interest rates, which is going to have a big change on this. In addition, what's that going to mean for rental construction and real estate construction? We don't really know. So I think this is really more of an exercise to look good to Canadians by saying we're putting some fences up here to prevent foreign buyers from buying our real estate. But whether or not this is really going to work or not, I think it will be almost impossible to tell. So I hope you found the video today to be informative. If you have, it would be awesome if you could give me a like or possibly leave a comment below to let me know what you think of the foreign buyer ban. And you could consider also subscribing to my channel. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next video.